Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Rodan. And today, as you can see, I'm returning to my Disney movie marathon where I'll be talking about the movies, of course, merchandising, theme parks, I don't know, whatever the case may be. Of course, if it's related to Disney one way or another, I'll be talking about it. But for this video, of course, I'll be talking about some religious people, and there's some kind of spiritual warfare and all that nonsense. And yes, it's people I've spoken about before, and it's these people, the plugged in show. And yeah, okay. So I just thought I'd talk about these people again. And for those who might have forgotten, and for those who don't know, I refer to these people as ultra soft. Yes, that's what I'm thinking. They're ultra soft. Like something's too scary or something like that. It's like, what's the whole stick now? For this podcast that they have done, they want to talk about some superhero stuff. Even though honestly, I'm getting tired of this whole superhero stuff, this comic book stuff. I got nothing against it really, but it's just not my stick. Real anyway, podcast here, whatever you want to call it, is almost nearly 40 minutes. So what I'm gonna do here is just split this into two parts because it's pretty damn long as it is. So okay, so the thing is that the whole comic book thing, I would get to the point where it's like I'll give you the more of what they're talking about to be a bit more specific, even though these kind of people tend to speak in broad terms. And yes, of course, they're religious. Well, we're not surprised. All right, Loki. Yes, he's this type of character. He might be considered a bad person, but maybe he's not all the way bad in some ways. He's kind of like a mixture of both. He's very devious, very wicked, but there's some good bits in him somewhere out there. So yeah, this kind of character trope is pretty popular in comics, of course. Those characters like, let's say, the Punisher. Yeah, he might do lots of destruction and whatnot, but he has good intent. So these type of characters tend to be not so black and white in some ways. And another example I can think of on top of my head is maybe, let's say, like Batman. He walks outside the law, like the whole vigilante thing. But of course, even though he doesn't want to kill nobody, I get that. But still, he still walks out the law in a lot of ways. And okay, again, on top of my head, maybe let's say, oh yeah, Deadpool. There's that character, of course. He can be pretty damn crazy, even though, again, he does have some good intent, quite obviously. So there's that. Another character, of course, I can think of right top of my head, of course, the Wolverine. He might come off like a bit of an asshole, like a dickhead, but again, he does have a good heart in some ways, even if he may make some regrettable decisions in life at times. So that does happen, of course. So another thing is, let me see, again, just brainstorming here. Let's say, oh yeah, and this character as well. She's pretty crazy in her own way, and maybe girly and whatnot, but pretty wild, of course. And again, speaking of female characters, I can also think of, let's say, yes, Harley Quinn. Even though she was originally introduced as a villain, but over the years, she's more a heroine in some ways, but still doing some bad things. So I guess it's kind of the mix of the two in some ways, of course, and whatnot. So it's not really a gender thing. It doesn't matter what the gender of the character is, unless the story itself is like super specific, I guess. And even if, like, let's say Gwen Stacy, she's more on the more good, pure side, but even at times she's forced to work outside the law. And but that's only if like absolutely necessary. She has no choice in the matter. You know, think about it. But yeah, as you can tell, there's a common thread with all these characters. I mean, there's plenty of other similar characters, of course. But I guess that's gonna be like the kind of the topic here when it comes like to anti-heroes and whatnot, becoming heroes or whatever. Like how morality is kind of blurred in some ways, or if they switch sides or whatever, depending on what that is. I guess depending on the story, and that's gonna be the topic of discussion, I guess. And it does make sense that these characters or certain characters act a certain way because in real life it's not so black and white. But that just makes it more realistic. That makes it more believable because this kind of thing happens in real life when you think about it. But okay. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, Yeah, the Deadpool and Wolverine movie is actually pretty good. I watched that twice. Once by myself and then once with Air Force. Good movie. And I rarely watch repeats. Anyway, and yes, this does tie into the whole Loki thing, the movie I mean. And yes, I know the people on the podcast, they talk about the whole being on Disney Plus. Oh my god. I spent about 5 minutes talking about this shit. Let's just get into it. God.
Parents, are you looking for an informative, encouraging, and engaging resource for your teen daughter? Check out the new.
Oh my god. I just started to listen to this. I'm already derailing this. Oh, okay. Whatever. What does any of this have to do with anything?
An improved Brio magazine from Focus on the Family. Almost double the original size in a book-like format, this trusted, biblically based magazine provides teen girls with inspiring stories, fashion advice, cultural insights, and positive role models. Help your teen girl live out her faith. Subscribe at briomagazine.com. That's briomagazine.com.
Oh my god, cringe. This is so cringe-worthy. Family-oriented and the Bible thing, whatnot. You sound old as hell. And that's funny coming from me because I'm over 100 years old. Okay, that aside, you realize that reading the Bible is not the only way to study cultures, right? Just any culture, doesn't matter what it is. There's other ways to study other cultures, not just through the Bible. It just feels like they just want to filter through. What am I talking? Let's just finish this. Yes, this is already a logical fallacy because they're acting as if like the Bible itself is the ultimate authority in everything, and it's the only way, possibly only way, to get the right information without any actual evidence. But anyway, proceed.
When it comes to mythology, usually you've got deities that are gods and goddesses of something useful, like, say, the harvest, or maybe rain, stuff like that. And then there's Loki, the Norse.
Okay, first of all, who is saying Loki's a god? Who? Literally, who is saying Loki is a god? Please tell me who is saying. I mean, aside from you guys, of course, but seriously, who is saying that Loki is a god? Literally, who? No one. And second of all, and so you're telling me that Loki is useless? And you can't. The fact he can't provide rain or anything, or some kind of water, liquid, I guess. Uh, so that makes him useless. Why does he have to provide that in order for him to be useful? That makes no sense, like at all. But okay, proceed, I guess.
God of mischief. With a smirk ever on his face, Loki delights in wrecking others' plans and wreaking his own mischievous blend of havoc on anyone unfortunate enough to be close to him. But what if Loki isn't quite as bad as we've come to believe? Could this established villain in Norse mythology and now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe actually have seeds of goodness trying to germinate in the subterranean depths of his heart?
Wait, what? What about Germany? Did I misheard that? Okay, anyway. Okay, excuse Disney for wanting the character to become more complex than just I'm a bad guy. Rah! Look at me, I'm twirling my mustache. I'm a bad guy because I'm bad. Therefore, I'm gonna do bad things, and I'm bad. Hey, I'm bad. I'm bad. I'm a bad guy. I'm a bad guy. Look, I'm bad. I'm bad. Bad. I'm the bad guy just because I'm bad. You realize that just making a character bad and that's it is just putting one dimension, right? You know that. So again, excuse them trying to flesh out the character a bit more than just being a bad guy.
Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Hey everyone, Adam Holtz here, your host of the Plugged In podcast, Focus on the Family's weekly conversation about entertainment, pop culture, and technology. Thanks for joining us today. Well, as you've probably guessed by now, we're going to be talking about the new Marvel series, Loki. But we're also going to unpack the trend toward embracing anti-heroes or anti-heroes. I'm not sure. I guess we should pick one and just go with it, right? On screen. Or at the very least, stories that seemingly seek to generate sympathy for characters that we, once upon a time, would have just considered pure evil through and through, and there wouldn't have been much conversation about it. Joining me for our conversation today are...
Paul Acey.
Emily Clark.
And Jonathan McKee.
Okay, what's more fun than talking about anti-heroes, right? I mean, this feels like a conversation ripe with possibility. And to get us started today, I want to talk about villains. And if villains had a March Madness. So, think
awesome.
about your favorite villain, maybe doing a Steph Curry from the three-point line, that sort of thing. If you had to pick 4 famous movie villains for a Final Four of villainy, who would they be and why?
I thought maybe Vader was a good villain. Palpatine's a good villain as well. Even though they're psychotic, they're crazy, but I thought they were well-written characters. But they have their own backstory and whatnot. And, of course, they were well-written. I thought so. Even, okay, this may not be a popular opinion, but, that stopped me before. But I did end up liking the Kylo Ren from the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I thought he was a pretty solid villain. I guess he was kind of a mixed bag, too, because he was not all the way bad and he was not all the way good. He was kind of a mix of two in some ways. So I guess it kind of balances out to some extent. Yes, so that's something. I liked him. He's cool.
Paul, I'm going to ask you to start because I know you're chomping at the bit to answer this question.
So much pressure. So
Chomping at the bit? What? That's an odd way of phrasing that. I was so funny earlier. What?
I spent a lot of time thinking about this question. I really love this question. I want to do whole 3 podcasts on this question alone. But
absolutely. I'm in.
I think the first 2 are no-brainers, right?
Right.
You've got Darth Vader, Joker.
Yeah, and I think Darth Vader just wins. I mean, maybe that.
But he's not really a bad guy.
Well, but that's kind of our point
so,
today, right? And maybe Joker's not either.
Oh, Joker is.
Oh, okay, Joker.
Okay, I did like the Joker that was played by Heath Ledger. That was a good portrayal. You can tell that version of Joker pretty much lived in the slums. Even though his backstory wasn't really all that explored, really, but you can tell how he was anyway, because he was a bit of a pessimist, because considering the fact that he saw the dark underbelly of society, therefore he thought everybody who was kind was just pretending to be kind, just to get up the ranks of society. So, that's kind of oversimplifying in some ways. There's a lot more to it than just that, but I thought that was a good version of the Joker. But, okay, can we just move on? What are you talking about? Oh, Christ almighty. You're so soft. If I have a character that's just swell like this, I'm pretty much sure you get triggered.
Hey, Michael, you want a popsicle? Oh, yeah, I do. Where they at? Up your butt and around the corner, you stupid piece of shit.
Okay, if you want me to keep it within comic book stuff, if I had this in a superhero comic book movie, you get triggered.
But I never control it. We go in the room and we smash on the sofa. Smash. Yeah, I'm from Texas, my bitches got ass.
Joker totally is.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll circle back to that later.
So
those are the first 2.
Those are the first 2. The other 2 I really struggled with. And I think I'm going to go with HAL 9000.
Oh, I was going to go with HAL 9000.
From 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I'm sorry you can't do that, Paul.
Open the podcast bay doors, Paul.
Oh,
that was pretty good,
nice,
huh?
Very nice.
It's a little creepy.
And I was going to go with a totally different person, but as I was walking down to the studio, I saw this balloon actually floating in the hallway.
Pennywise.
Exactly. I felt like it was a sign. I needed to actually say Pennywise, the clown from It.
And I hope that balloon was not a symbol that Pennywise is lurking in our studio somewhere today.
Let us hope not. So that's my final 4.
All right, who would like to go next? Well, don't everybody chime in at once. Okay, I'll go. Fine, since everybody's staring at me. Okay. Final 4. Man, it's just
so tough.
It's hard because, this is very tough. Honestly, the first one I thought of is so obscure that some people are even going to be like, what? I haven't even seen that movie. It's not even a sequel. It's the 3rd movie in a series. It's Mission Impossible 3. Philip Seymour Hoffman's
character, Owen Davian, best evil guy ever.
Evil.
Maybe you just saw the preview to the movie where Tom Cruise is hanging him out of a plane, threatening him, and he's just laughing in Tom Cruise's face as he, is counting reverse. Yeah. It's just the counting thing. Philip Seymour Hoffman counting as he's about to do something bad. It was great. And honestly, he was probably my favorite villain. He felt like a Bond villain, and
he did. Yeah.
And there's and we could go through the Bond villains alone, couldn't we, Paul? We
Oh,
could just
yeah,
sit there and
absolutely.
be like,
I'm adding somebody to my list right now.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You're thinking of a Bond villain, or we're even thinking of just Dr. Evil. No, I would have to say also though, the character of Stansfield in the movie The Professional, played by Gary Oldman.
Oh,
also
yeah.
one of the
Gary Oldman makes really good villains.
Yeah, really bad. And then I'm going to cross the divide, and you guys might even claim that I'm cheating and that this isn't a villain but a monster. But I'm going to go with Bruce the shark in Jaws. He was the worst villain ever.
He was just doing what sharks do, though, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but he was so villainous because you never saw him coming. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're swimming along on your little yellow raft, and next thing you know,
swimming, just keep swimming. Yeah, oh wait, that's something different.
Okay, are we allowed to do monsters?
Because for me, it would definitely, be Jaws. But
Yeah, no, I'll allow Jaws.
Well, in that case too, then it is the Alien and the Alien one because he was just so bad.
I just wanted to say xenomorph. I don't know if you
xenomorph.
can knock a creature for just doing what it was made to do.
No, Alien was pure evil. He was on my list. He was good, and like
He didn't
Jaws,
ask to have acid in his veins.
he needed some sort of acid reflux medication. But he was just so scary and bad. So I'm gonna actually go with two creatures, and I know it's cheating, but it's okay because I can do that.
Well, and I'm allowing it, and I'm the arbiter of this icebreaker question. So
Good.
well, judges say it's okay.
Emily?
Okay, so I kind of have an A team and a B team.
Really?
But I also have the villain who I most want to see destroyed.
Okay.
I've put a lot of thought into this.
I can tell.
So the first team is all Disney, and I chose these people because I would love to see them in a movie together, just with their personalities. I think it would be fantastic. And that is Ursula, Maleficent, Cruella, and Hades. And I'm not talking about any of the live action stuff that's come out recently. I'm talking about the OG cartoons. Those four characters. I think that movie would just be so fabulous and so much fun to watch.
All right, what's the B team?
My B team includes non-Disney characters. So
You gotta put Voldemort on there. He's basically...
It's a good thing I picked 12 because you guys have taken all mine.
I feel like he's kind of like the Hitler of the wizarding world. He's very evil. And he's like, he has no redemptive qualities and stuff. And I know this. I've read the books. I've watched the movies. There are no redemptive qualities about this character.
He's a really good villain, though.
He's a really good villain, exactly. That's why I put him on this team, because this is like if you were to have a villain showdown on who is like the worst. And then I would actually put Scar from The Lion King on there.
Scar.
Another Disney villain. He's pretty evil. Like, you have characters like Hades, who I mentioned before, who, he tries to overthrow
his brother, but he doesn't try to kill his brother. Scar straight up murders Mufasa.
Yes.
And then blames Simba and is like, it's your fault. Simba's a little kid. What on earth,
And we could do a whole podcast on just Jeremy Irons' villains.
Yes, it has to be Scar with the Jeremy Irons voice.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, and then to round off that team, because again, I actually think he would find a way to take over each of these villains somehow, or he would just get killed straight away, and that would be Loki.
Okay, well, Loki, that will be a good segue into our main conversation, but I still have to go. And
you do.
We have had a very indulgent first question, so I will speed round with, honestly, what are my B
level leftovers, but I want to do something new and different. So, my 4, for the purpose of this conversation, actually, they're pretty great. Saruman. Saruman. Boba Fett.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? I'm going to have to go with Agent Smith from The Matrix. Ooh. I know it's an R-rated movie, and I felt a little bit uneasy about that, but you guys picked all the rest of them. And Jaws, not the shark, but the guy with metal teeth from multiple Roger Moore.
Absolutely.
James Bond movies, yes. So, I prefer him and Happy Gilmore, but yeah. All right, well, I think we're off to a great start today.
Talking about anti-heroes. And
well, of course, they're just going to meander on about random stuff. Wouldn't it make more sense if we just stick to comic book type movies? That seems more fitting considering the fact that we're talking about Loki here. Why are we talking about maybe something from like Tom Cruise movies, horror movies, and some other random stuff? It seems kind of stupid. This seems like too loose of a definition here when it comes to the topic at hand here. Wouldn't it be better off to just talk about comic book stuff? And that's it? There seems like no structure here is what I'm getting at. But okay, whatever.
Their draw, why they're compelling, and why we want to have stories about them. And, once upon a time, back in the day, it wasn't hard to spot a hero, whether we're talking Westerns, superhero shows, science fiction. The bad guys were obviously quite self-evidently bad, right? Nobody was concerned with whether Lex Luthor had a tough childhood and maybe there was a reason he was bald and bad. He was just bad. Nobody cared about their feelings. Bad guys don't have feelings. They just tie people down on railroad tracks. No one cared about how they got to be so evil. And no one cared if they might secretly...
What the hell do you mean nobody cares? I mean, yes, it's up to debate if the backstory of a certain villain should be explored or not. I think it depends on the villain himself, because, like, for example, like the whole Joker thing, his backstory wasn't really explored all that well. The Heath Ledger version, anyway. I mean, you can tell, I guess, there's some glimpses of his backstory, because the whole thing with his father and mother, maybe his father was alcoholic or something, but maybe some of it was false, some of it was true, but you can tell he's a liar in some ways, so it's kind of hard to depict that. But you can still get the gist of what he's doing and whatnot. So it depends on the character, really.
To do the right thing. Nope, none of that. Bad guys were there for one reason, to be bad, and to give the good guys, the heroes, someone to fight. Well, I think we got tired of that, right? Times have changed, and these days, so-called anti-heroes are everywhere. In fact, you could probably make the argument there might be more anti-hero TV shows and movies these days than ones that feature heroes, and even the heroes sometimes act like villains. We've sort of fallen in love with, if not straight up darkness, perhaps shades of gray. And so guys and gals, sorry, I don't want to be exclusive here, villains, no matter what gender, that we once loved to hate, are suddenly being written as more fully developed characters.
Okay, that was weird. What's with the... That was a weird... Okay, I'm just nitpicking it a little bit. But anyway, still... Yeah, okay. But anyway, that aside, that was odd. Okay, if the writer, the script writer of a show, a movie, a comic, a novel, whatever the case may be, if said writer wants to make the character seem more fully developed, so what? Okay, and again, like I was saying a moment ago, it depends on the character. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It just depends what the story calls for exactly, really. But okay.
Their rebellion might still be pretty evil, but they perhaps have a spark of something redemptive lurking deep down inside. Or not. So let's talk about that. Plugged In recently reviewed the new Marvel series Loki. And Paul, you wrote that review for Plugged In, and I think all of us have watched it. So what's the general plot here, and what are some things that parents need to know about the show's content? We'll start in a very Plugged In kind of place here.
You betcha. So Loki, the last time we saw him, technically he was dead. He died. Yeah. Except that in the final Avengers movie, he escapes somehow. In circa 2012, the Avengers go back. It's very complicated, but they go back and do some stuff in the original Avengers movie that they didn't originally do. Loki snags the Tesseract, which was the big MacGuffin for the 2012 movie.
If I were a MacGuffin, what would I be?
Oh, sweet merciful Jesus. Oh, my God. None of you are talking about nothing. Talking about a MacGuffin. I mean, yes, a MacGuffin, yes, it's a style of script writing, sure. Yes, a MacGuffin can be used, if used properly in a movie, it's fine. Yes, it could be a way to intentionally mislead the viewer of said movie, or reader of a book or whatever. If it's done right, yeah, you can make it like a big surprise. There's quite a few movies that have done that. I mean, I could name a few, but I don't give away any spoilers. Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho. I'll leave it at that. But anyway,
a weird little object that's like it's like the Holy Grail, essentially, or the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark of the Covenant. I was thinking Raiders.
Exactly. It's one of those devices that everybody's looking for. So the Tesseract was the MacGuffin for that particular movie. So he goes off, and all of a sudden he becomes what he suddenly learns is this variant, this time criminal, essentially.
Okay.
And there's an organization out there. Little did he know that there's an organization out there led by the timekeepers that keeps track of what is called the sacred timeline. He has gone off the sacred timeline, and they need to bring him in for some comeuppance. Except that there's this one detective for what is called the Time Variance Authority.
So, okay, what's the problem exactly? What's the issue? So, they don't want Loki, when I say they, the people who made the show, I mean, on Disney Plus, they don't want Loki to be this one-dimensional villain that, oh yeah, he's gonna cause havoc, and that's it. He's gonna cause mayhem in the city, causing so much destruction and whatnot. I mean, okay, he technically did do that up in the first Avengers movie. Loki did cause so much destruction in the first Avenger movie, that's true. But the writers wanted him to be more than just that. I mean, he's the brother of Thor, sure, well, adopted brother. But still, though, give him more of a character, so what?
Played by Owen Wilson.
Played by Owen Wilson. His name is Mobius M. Mobius.
And he's got a really killer mustache, too.
He has a killer mustache. One of the
that may be a little bit weird, but I mean, you look at him, you're like, Owen Wilson.
Maybe that's what the middle M is for.
Ooh.
Mobius, mustache, Mobius.
I love it. I love it. Anyway, back to you, Paul.
Anyway, Loki is sort of sucked into the workings of the Time Variance Authority because they have a worse time criminal that they have to capture. And so that is where it begins. Loki, the show, is, for the most part, what you would expect if you watch an MCU movie or an MCU TV show.
And you're talking Marvel Cinematic Universe,
correct? Correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, that seems a bit excessive. Saying that Loki is like the worst criminal in existence, well, at least in existence when it comes to the MCU anyway, that seems a bit harsh. I wouldn't go that far. But, I mean, yes, he's done bad things. Okay, sure, he has done questionable stuff, sure, but I wouldn't go as far as say he's pure evil. I won't say that. Has he done awful things? Sure, I'll say that, but the absolute worst of the worst of the worst, no, I won't go that far either. That just seems rather hyperbolic if you ask me, but okay, go on, proceed, I guess.
Yeah, so you're going to have quite a bit of action. You're going to have quite a bit of violence. You have some language, including the S word is spoken a couple of times. The other thing that we should really note here
Which is pretty consistent with what we've seen in most of the movies, I think. Wouldn't you say?
It really is on a level with the movies that we've seen.
Which is not
Very
to minimize
PG-13.
it.
Correct.
But
Correct.
It's of a piece.
Exactly. So it's probably pretty edgy for what you would see typically on Disney Plus, but if you're used to the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, this is of a piece with that. Now, Loki is shown on a trailer, and if you really, really freeze some scenes, there's a little document that describes Loki, the time.
Seriously? That was edgy? You thought Loki was edgy? Really? Are you serious? You're yanking my chain, aren't you? You thought that was edgy? What have you been watching? How is that edgy? What? Again, I'll bring about the whole ultra soft thing I keep bringing up when it comes to these people. You're ultra soft. Really? And it's funny coming from you guys anyway, because a lot of Christians, I say a lot and say all, do have a sense of this warped mortality when it comes to having wars anyway. Either you believe in God or you don't. And if you don't, you're evil. So you have a odd sense of morality in a lot of ways, but okay, what the hell is going on here?
Authority paperwork that describes his sexuality as gender fluid.
No, gender fluid is not in itself a sexuality. That's more in regards of expressing one's gender. That's what that is about. I mean, I'm glancing over a lot of detail too, but it's not a sexual orientation. It's more of a gender identity thing. And so what? What does that have to do with anything? But okay.
Interesting.
So, but that really doesn't come to bear, at least that we've seen so far in the story. Huh. So you would have to be watching very, very, very closely, but it's something that parents should be aware of.
Wow, I had not been aware of that fact.
Whatever gender he would prefer, or she, or whatever, prefers to address him or herself or whatever else you can think of. What relevance does that have? Or seriously, what relevance does any of the gender identity stuff is relevant? How? How is it relevant exactly? What are you talking about?
Was I apparently watching that closely?
That almost makes me just feel like they did that because he
Who's they? They who? Again, this is a logical fallacy because you're not specifying this they. Who is this they you're referring to? Like who? Okay, what is? I'm so confused. I mean, okay, I was already confused from the very get go, but I'm just getting more confused here. What?
he's a shapeshifter.
Exactly.
That might be why they did
There's
that.
You could go a lot of different directions.
Oh my God! Why are we talking about this? What relevance does this have to do with anything? Okay, to answer your question, representation. That's it. That's literally it. Just so representation. If that's confirmed, that's it. Just so representation. So what?
Conversation. From what I can see of Loki in all the movies and in the TV shows so far, the only thing he really cares about is power.
Yeah.
So you.
What an asshole. Oh, sweet baby Jesus almighty. Okay, it just seems like you're trying to dismiss the gender identity thing. In that case, why did you bring it up? Why did you bring it up if you're just going to dismiss it a moment later? So what? Okay, Loki wants power. He's obsessed with power. He's power hungry. Whoop-de-doo.
See him with a lot of romantic attachments whatsoever.
Well, Loki's a pretty complex character.
I don't know how you can say that when you want to allow the character to be a complex character. I think the whole gender identity thing, he seems homophobic, don't you think? You just saying that you just bring all this up just to take jabs at the character. Oh, it's not a big deal. Yet you mentioned it. Yet you mentioned it. It's so confusing. It is so confusing. What are you talking about?
What do you think happens in this show that might invite viewers to see him from a more sympathetic point of view? What makes him, moves him from just straight up villain to...
Oh my God, this is so goddamn stupid. You just gave yourself the answer a moment ago with the whole gender identity thing. Doing that will give Loki more of a sympathetic perspective because maybe he just needs to find himself. Who am I as a person? How do I fit in society? You just gave yourself the answer.
Hero kind of territory, do you think?
Well, I mean, if we're just looking at the movies, I would say because he does try to change his ways in some of the later movies. He works alongside his brother, Thor. Okay. And, I think that there's some redemptive qualities there. He really tries to, fix some of the mistakes he's made.
Okay, technically he's adopted, but not really blood related. And another thing is that, can you be a bit more specific? Sometimes, yes, he was forced to do so. It depends on the situation. Just be specific. You're being awfully vague here. What are you talking about?
If we're talking specifically about the TV show now, I would say that Loki, he looks back on, or rather he looks forward into what he will do, because the Timekeepers are able to show him, like, this is what happens in the sacred timeline, and he sees what all his mistakes lead to. He sees that, he's actually...
Okay, yeah, you just seem to just dismiss the whole stab of the gender identity thing, but she said forwards, no, I mean backwards, no, I mean forward. Yeah, that's a reference to the whole time traveling thing a moment ago. Because he knows he's in a dangerous situation. He knows his character will eventually die.
Cause, well, maybe not the direct cause, but he does sort of cause his own mother's death, that was like the one person besides Thor who he actually loved. And even when Odin eventually dies, like, he felt remorse at that, like, because it's still his parents and such. And, when he sees all the pain.
Okay, giving a character a tragic backstory or a tragic motivation to be bad. Yeah, that does happen in real life too, because okay, that could really ruin somebody's psyche, that in real life. Like, it could actually potentially make someone turn bad. That's actually pretty realistic, actually, when you think about it. Plausible.
and suffering he's caused. You know, he looks at Mobius and he's like, he basically says, I don't enjoy causing pain. I don't. I have to do this differently. I have to fix this.
Okay.
He has always been a fascinating character, maybe arguably the most fascinating character within the MCU.
Again, that sounds personally. Actually, that actually sounds realistic. The one person who really cared for you dies, and that really ruins your psyche, and then it makes you snap. That can happen in real life. That makes it seem plausible. So again, what's the problem?
Because
that's another podcast too.
We have seen his character change throughout the movies. In the original Avengers, in the original Thor, he was very, very, very much a bad guy. But even there, you saw
he's the main big bad in the first Avengers.
In the first Avengers, yeah, and but even then, you see some complexity. You see.
So lost. I'm so lost. What's the problem exactly? Okay, so what? Okay. I mean, I think you glance at a lot of stuff. You still haven't really talked about anything. And not really when it comes to plot-wise. You're just jumping around with the TV shows and the movies. But okay, I don't get it.
The fear, you see the insecurities, you see his desire to prove himself as worthy of his brother.
Puny God.
And as the movies go on, especially when you come to Thor Ragnarok, you see sort of this development of his character where he tries to do something better with his life.
I think you're pretty insecure to take jabs at Loki for this supposed gender fluid thing. Anyway, again, you glancing over a lot of stuff. You have not been specific on anything. Hey, give me a situation where he was insecure. Name a few situations. Just tell me. Literally, just tell me this very second.
It has always made Loki one of the more compelling characters within the MCU, and I think that's one of the reasons why Disney decided that he would be a great focal point for a whole TV show, because in a way, I think that Loki, more than anyone in the MCU, reflects us.
Oh, boy.
You just straight up lie right there. Oh, he's one of the more interesting villains in the MCU, blah, 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 blah. Then what's with the jab earlier? Yeah, I'm still hung up on the whole gender fluid thing. Then why did you take a jab at him a moment ago? So you mean to tell me that these kind of characters can be complex with that included? That is so stupid. That is so dumb.
Well, this wasn't on my list of questions, but, well, why?
Loki, as we know, if we are Christians, we know that we are fallen creatures. We know that we are inherently sinful. We know that we struggle to do the right thing and our own selfish desire.
Oh, kiss the fattest part of my ass with that shit. Oh, we all fallen creatures. I'm not going to be a fallen creature of sin. Okay, the whole idea behind sin, I find it questionable. I find it silly if you ask me, but I'm not really going into that because that's not what this video is about. But of course, you can try to get to association, but okay.
Often win out.
Well, yours. That was for you, Emily.
But you do have this sense that we are always sort of on the verge of rebellion, right? Yeah. I mean, we are a rebellious creature. We are stiff-necked people. And that is the epitome of Loki in a sense. Yeah. So you have that.
Of course, they're going to try to force their Christian point of view into the Loki show. That's what's going on here. They're forcing this whole point of view of Christianity into this. Yes, guilty by association. Just because Adam and Eve did something bad, therefore literally everyone else did something bad too. That's dumb. That makes no sense.
The bad wane within him. And I think even in the second episode, when we get to the second episode, he actually says he knows a secret. Loki knows a secret. Good people are not truly good, and bad people are not truly bad. And I think that sums up the human character right there.
Wow.
Well, I think it's interesting.
As I said multiple times before, when it comes to Christians, at least a good chunk of them in a way, look at the world in a very black and white point of view, which in itself is a logical fallacy because you're either good as in Christian or bad and it's a non-believer. That's about it. It's not that simple, you know.
when it comes to, somebody like Thanos, and can you believe that none of us chose Thanos as a bad guy? Because, my goodness.
Oh, Thanos.
I mean, he probably should have.
Thanos.
Anyway,
I pick Thanos.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we probably should have. But it's funny because compared to Thanos, all of a sudden Loki becomes that good guy. And I would say it's very much
So does this mean babies? Yes, as an ask for infants. You tell me that there was button sinners? That's how it comes off. So if you're a baby, you're a sinner. You're right off the bat, you're a sinner right off the bat, just because these people said so. It just leaves more questions than answers, really, at the end of the day.
talking about, I guess Loki in a way embraces the sinful nature in a biblical sense, because he kind of does whatever feels right in the moment and whatever is, kind of selfishly, he's kind of thinking for Loki. He's not really thinking for others. He's not considering others. And I'm sure that he.
All right, folks. Yeah, like I was saying, I'm going to have to cut this into more than one part because, as you can tell, they just go all over the place. They keep rambling on a bunch of nonsense, really, at the end of the day. This is very confusing because at the end of the day, yes, they're trying to tie into the whole thing with, of course, sin and whatnot. Like, somehow that's a point when you think about it. Yes, I could go on with this whole sin thing because the problem with sin here is that it's guilty by association. We all know what happened with Adam and Eve, where they were tempted by the snake, serpent, or whatever you call it, and then God banished them from the Garden of Eve. What do you call it? This garden, this wonderful garden. This whole problem here could be like an entire video on its own. And yes, I do find the whole issue with sin questionable. I really don't want to spend so much time on this because, first of all, this video is very long as it is. So, I'm going to split this in more than one part, like I was saying. It's going to be 2 parts, of course. But anyway, just because Adam and Eve did something bad, therefore the rest of humanity has to pay for it, which I find kind of weird considering the fact that didn't Jesus Christ die for our sins? So what about then? So what about after the fact that he sacrificed his own well-being for everyone else? Shouldn't that mean that we should be going to heaven automatically? Because he almost wiped everyone's slate clean. Anything about it? Not only that, according to these Christians, regardless of which denomination you believe in, all Christians will agree on that one statement. And that one statement being God is all knowing, God is all powerful, God himself is practically indestructible. So this implies that he already knew that Adam and Eve was going to do a sinful thing. And this entire thing could be an entire video as well, but I'm just going to end it already, folks, because I was saying this video is very long as it is. I'm not going to spend too much time on here. I'm just going to get to the point here, really, because this alone just leaves many questions. And yes, it contradicts the whole idea that we came from apes, which technically the human race did originate from apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, and all that jazz. Why do you think they're so alike to us? Here's your sign. I know a lot of these Christians won't accept that. I mean, there are Christians who will. It just depends who you're talking to. But a good chunk of them won't accept the whole evolution thing because it straight up contradicts the Bible, which it does. But yes, there's a lot of people out there who just deny the evolution thing, which yes is another subject matter I could go deeper into as well. That also could be an entire video in the video in itself if I wanted to. But going back to the whole Adam and Eve thing, it's just got quite a few questions because of the fact that would have been incest. Yes, so you tell me that God himself allowed incest. I mean, yes, there's the whole counter argument where God only allowed incest for only maybe like a few hundred years, and that was it. It's still pretty bad. It's still weird when you think about it. I mean, yes, I mean, the whole idea with the whole Noah's Ark. So God himself basically rebooted his entire creation, and he stopped the whole incest thing again with Noah's Ark. Then how do we have people from Africa? And how do we have people from Asia, like China, Korea, so on and so forth? And how do we have people from Jamaica? How do we have people from Mexico? How do we have people from Cuba? so on and so forth. How do we have people from Dutch? How do we have people from Germany, Scotland, Iraq, India, just to name a few? And it makes my head spin right. I mean, yes, you could always argue that maybe he stopped. When I say he, I mean God. God stopped the whole incest thing right after a good while too. It still allows the inbreeding because the inbreeding would have killed the human race a long time ago. And then every single person for a good while anyway would have doubled the parents. By which I mean, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8, 8 becomes 16. It keeps doubling up more and more. So there would have been multiple hundreds of thousand people more than the Earth right now. Okay, technically speaking, you had to work backwards and whatnot when it comes to the whole math equation I was talking about. Like I said, folks, I could easily make an entire video on this alone if I wanted to. But again, ew, incest. That's disgusting. Even if you just want to include the whole thing with the Noah's Ark and his family, it's still disgusting. You have to work backwards in the sense that okay, let's just say one parent has one child. You still have to work backwards because two, like we're saying, two becomes 4 and 4 becomes 8, then 8 becomes 16. Then you have to include that, of course, when it comes to the whole mathing thing. Because, okay, 16 plus 16 is what? Maybe, if we do my, is 32. And then 32 plus 32 is 64. And then 64 is 128. Then times that by 2, and then you just, Christ, just makes my head hurt here. But you get the picture. You just keep adding more and more and more to that. It just seems ridiculous. It just keeps going more and more. But point being, it's just incest. There's no way that this entire thing would have worked, is what I'm trying to get at. Because we all know the problems when it comes to incest. It just gets worse and worse and worse. There's no way that the human race would have survived for this long, is what I'm getting at. There's no way. There's literally no way, unless, of course, a cop out answer. God works in mysterious ways. Christ. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll make part 2 as soon as I can. Later. Christ.